Hi, hey, hello, how's it going? It's Emily, and today we're gonna have just a cozy book reading vlog. So, this is inspired by a recent release that I picked up and was just so excited about, and just had 5-star feels from the synopsis, from what I had been hearing about it. And so, when I picked it up, I picked a couple of other books that I thought might be cozy off my shelf and just in a cozy mood. So we're gonna start with the one I was just referring to, which is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I don't know, I just had a vibe, I had a feeling, as I said, and I am, how many pages in? 125 pages in, and very strong start, very positive feelings continuing. And we're following our main character, Keela, who is a librarian in the capital city of this world. And as the story is starting, her library is getting burned down. There's a kind of political revolution happening, and the people instigating this revolution have burned the library, which is kind of surprising to her because the revolution has kind of been about making sure that people can access information and magic and have equal access to that. And so she is kind of didn't think that they would actually burn down the library as the resource that has these books on magic. But as it's burning, she's trying to save as many books as she can and get out with her sentient plant companion, a spider plant named Kaz, and who has kind of just been her companion as she is, at this point, pretty much all alone in this library. All the other librarians have left as a result of this political unrest and fear of what might happen to the library. But as she's been so convinced that nothing would happen to the library, she has stayed until literally the very last moment where it is burning. There's smoke. She's trying to get as many books as she can, as I said, and then, escapes onto a boat with all of these books, or at least as many as she could get, and then is trying to think about where to go. She doesn't have much money and really, can't stay somewhere for very long. And, the only place she can reasonably think of is to go back to her childhood home on a faraway island, or kind of a far off the beaten path island, and, go back there and hope that her parents have passed away, but she hadn't heard any mention of them wanting to sell or pass on the house to anyone, and so she's hoping that no one is there and that she can just kind of go in and stay there until she's not quite sure what. And so she takes her sentient spider plant, she takes her books, she goes to her childhood home. She's starting to, it's been how many years since her parents were there? A good handful of years. And so she's trying to clean everything out and figure out how to survive and, what she can do to kind of be self-sufficient. But she needs to make sure that she has the supplies that she needs to kind of build herself up to be self-sufficient. And so she is learning that she's going to need to rely on neighbors and the people near her and in town at least the closest town to where she is. Not anything as big as the capital, but she's relying on other people to be able to help make herself self-sufficient, and is starting to realize that maybe it's not a bad thing to rely on people. It's just so cozy, it's charming, it's so whimsical, and I'm adoring the writing, I'm adoring our main character, I'm adoring Kaz, the sentient plant, and just her trying to figure things out. I'm rooting for her so much. And another just interesting aspect to the world is, the magic books that she was able to save. She could only save so many, but she is trying to figure out what she can do to help those around her. The people in charge, or who were formerly in charge in the capital, had very much been about, or ended up, restricting access to magic and kind of keeping it in the hands of a few. And had, in previous years, sent around magicians to different far-off places like her home island to help make sure that the environment was kind of in balance, that the weather was overall good, that there were plenty of fish to catch, that the tides were good, again, the weather was good, or that the storms weren't too intense but were enough to grow crops. They kind of helped to manage this sort of balance with the natural world. In part, that's what they did. I think they did some other things as well, but that was a big part of what they did. And the capital has really stopped sending their magicians to these far-off places, and they've really concentrated that magic in the capital, and really are just focusing it on a wealthy few. And so she is realizing kind of how out of balance the natural world has become without these magicians stopping by. And so she's trying to figure out what she can do to help. And her solution is to, and magic isn't, or at least in the previous, with the previous people in charge, magic wasn't allowed. Outside of those restricted, those few that had access to it, magic wasn't really allowed. And so, she's trying to find a way to use the magic and the spells in these books to help people without it being super obvious. Because although there's a new group in power now, she's not entirely sure what to think of them, especially since they burned down the library. And, she is far off and remote, so she's not really sure they would even be able to do anything about her doing bits of magic here and there to help out her community. But she's trying to figure out a way where she can fit in and help and do what she can. And anyway, I'm just adoring it, and I'm adoring the messages, but I don't feel like the messages are too in your face or overpowering. They're there, they're obvious, and are driving the story forward and providing motivations for our character and a bit of world building. There's not a ton. It's definitely aiming to be a cozy fantasy. There's not as much world building as there's going to be in maybe an epic fantasy, but yeah, it's providing that motivation and kind of bit of world building, but isn't too heavy-handed. So I'm really appreciating it, and again, just adoring our characters so much. So I have high hopes that this will be a new favorite. And I'm also hoping to read The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. Also, how about these two covers next to each other? Similar vibes. I love it. Anyway, because this one is also just an absolutely gorgeous cover. So I'm hoping to read this one as well, and I'll talk more about it as I start them. I'm not entirely sure if this one is actually intended to be a cozy fantasy. This is The Wren and the Holly Library by K.A. Lindell. When I was trying to figure out if this was a cozier vibe, there were some reviews that were saying it walks an interesting line between being cozy and being a bit more gritty. So I'm not really sure what to expect, or if this is even cozy at all, but I'm excited to read it. And so I figured I would just include it in here whether or not it's cozy. So we'll see. But yeah, good vibes so far. So let's hope that continues. So checking in, I have finished The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and this was absolute perfection and exactly what I wanted out of this story. So again, we're following Keela. I think I gave a basic description and of her going back with her sentient spider plant friend to her home cottage, trying to, one, fit in with her hometown again and kind of reintegrate herself into society there. It's been a long time since she's been back, and the people there don't trust her at first and feel like they don't trust the capital city dweller. But she shows them that she wants to be there, that she values their way of life, that she is from there and wants to really make roots there. And she does that by, as I said, opening this shop that sells jams and some other things and little remedies that the people in the community are telling her that would be helpful for them. And they're weathering these storms that are made worse by not having the capital magicians coming by to help calm these storms and calm the waters. And so they're, dealing with some of those storms and coming together as a community to get through them. And I'm not going to talk too much about it, but someone else comes in who kind of is throwing things off a bit, and so she's just trying to do what she can to help people in this community. And it's just so heartwarming. It's so charming and heartwarming and cozy, and I really appreciated the undertones of the environmental message in here as well, about the imbalance that humans have with nature. I loved it. So I've also been, after that, reading The Wren and the Holly Library by K.A. Lend, and this one has been a lot of fun. I'm probably 2/3 through, maybe a tad more, and so we're following Kierce, and she is a thief for hire. This isn't a cozy book. I figured it would probably be a stretch, but I just really wanted to read this. But I do feel like it's definitely more on the grittier side than the cozier side. But we're following Kierce, who is a thief for hire in New York City, like a futuristic New York City or an alternate New York City. And this is one where monsters and humans live side by side, various kinds of monsters. And monsters is really just kind of the term for all sorts of non-human beings, werewolves, vampires, all sorts of stuff. And so she is hired to steal something from the home of someone who turns out to be one of these types of monsters. And he realizes that she's able to just get through his wards, which she shouldn't be able to do. And so he's thinking there's something more to who she is and that she might not be human. And so he essentially offers her a job. He wants to find something and steal something, and he's like, hey, you would be perfect for this. I need your help. And basically, if you agree to work with me, then, you can not only get paid a bunch of money, but the place that he wants to steal something is also the location of the last information that she has about someone that she cares about who's gone missing. And so she has a reason to want to go to that place anyway and kind of investigate some things on her own. And so she ends up agreeing to work with him to get trained up and, get prepared for this heist, this mission to steal this thing. And it's kind of fun. There's definitely less the fact that library is in the title was one of the reasons I was like, maybe this will be somewhat cozy, we'll see. But there is a library in the house, and they do spend some time there, but it's not really a major part of the story. But it's really her going through, trying to figure out what's going on, going through some training and just doing what she can to prepare for this, but also learning more about what she might be. And there's a lot going on with that and what it means and what she can do. Anyway, so it's been fun, but it's definitely been much more along that vein. And the place that they need to go is like this monster under market or like night market. Like underground night market is what I meant to say there. So which is kind of fun. And so I'm excited to explore that underground night market more. Anyway, so I've been having a good time, and I will read the last third of this one and then get started on Honey Witch. I will be commuting in the next couple of days, which generally are days I can't really check in very much or at all. So hopefully I won't be too far into Honey Witch or done with Honey Witch by the time I can actually check in again. But, you know, it is what it is. We shall see. Hopefully, actually, one of the things that I might be able to do in the meantime to spread that out a little more is read Memento, the novella in the Illuminae series file, because I do for Kim's TBR game, one of the prompts is to read a book from an Australian author. So I might slip that in there to spread it out a little bit more so that I'm not super far into Honey Witch by the time I can check in again. But anyway, point is, we'll check back in once some more reading has happened. So I have finished The Wren and the Holly Library. Wouldn't call it cozy, but it was super fun. So yeah, I just had a good time with this one. I think I said as much as I want to about the plot, but yeah, it was mostly going back and forth between New York and this underground market and figuring some things out about what's going on and how she can help, figuring out more about who she is, who she can and can't trust. And yeah, it was just a good time. I'm excited for the next one. And I have gotten halfway into The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shield. And in this one, you're following Marigold. And it's been a delight so far. Honestly, you're following Marigold. She is, and it feels historic in terms of the time period. There are balls, there are kind of 1800s English customs around dating and courtship, and she's trying to find a suitor. She doesn't really want to. The one person that she had been dating at one point in the past is now engaged to someone else, or got engaged to someone else in front of her, kind of in a very public way. And she just has never really been interested in the life that she was ultimately going to have where she was. She feels very out of place, very weird. She has just weird things that she can see or that happen around her, particularly around the full moon. And so she knows that there's something different about her, but her parents have never really answered her questions about what those things are or what they could mean. And her grandmother comes to visit one day and tells her that she is a honey witch and invites Marigold to go back to her cottage with her to study, to take over being this land's honey witch and helping kind of maintain the land and maintain some magical barriers that help keep everything safe. And she's just getting old and not going to be able to do it for much longer. She wants to be able to train Marigold to be able to do this. And over her parents' protests, she becomes a honey witch and comes into her powers and goes off with her grandmother. And it's just so like the vibes. This is a vibes book for sure. So the vibes have been super fun and exactly what I wanted. It's just her figuring out how to take over what her grandmother does and helping clients and learning about her different abilities and learning about how to run the, I don't want to say shop because it's not a shop, but like, people will come and ask for her grandmother's help, and so she's just learning to be able to do all the things that her grandmother did for the community. and she comes across an old friend of hers from childhood, and his circle of friends, including Lottie, who is very skeptical about all of this witch business. And so our main character ultimately just gets frustrated enough that she's trying to help her childhood friend find his soulmate, and she invites them to stay, both him and Lottie, to stay with her to kind of show them what she does and prove that what she does is real magic. And yeah, anyway, so it's been fun. The vibes have definitely been there for me. Another key thing here is that part of the curse of being the Honey Witch is that no one can fall in love with Miracle. That's part of what happens when you become the Honey Witch. But of course, she and Lottie, it's very clear from the synopsis that Lottie is the love interest here, and that she's going to have to make some choices or figure some things out to be able to, maybe pursue her feelings for Lottie. So Lottie is the one who's skeptical about her abilities, and so they really don't get along at first, and that switch happens far too quickly for my liking, but again, it's all about the vibes. So yeah, definitely been having fun with this one. I will continue to read this one and check back in once I have made some more progress. So I have finished The Honey Witch, so here to wrap up this vlog. I'm very happy to say I absolutely adored this one. Will repeat my feelings that this is like a pure vibes book, and for me that can be enough. And if that's not usually enough for you, I can definitely understand a lot of the criticisms that I've heard in just a few reviews that I've seen. I try not to hear or see too many reviews for books like this that I'm just wanting to be excited about and just go into with an open mind. But I'm very glad that I enjoyed this one because this edition is absolutely stunning and I didn't want to have to get rid of it. But yeah, again, the vibes carried it for me, ultimately was what happened with this one. And yeah, I loved the writing. I loved just the whimsy and the fun and the romance, even though I'll say again, that switch between her and Lottie not getting along and then suddenly being in love happened far too quickly for what I prefer. I prefer for them to be a little more slow burn than it was in this book, but I still did love just the writing behind the romance, the writing behind the world and the vibes and this cottage and this world and the magic, and I just had a fun time with this one. So yeah, definitely would recommend all of these books. I had so much fun with this vlog. This was exactly what I needed, and this helped just get me into that cozy mood. I think this was a nice transition into some fall things that I'm excited about. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read these, or let me know if you have recommendations for some cozy books that I should check out. I'll leave information below, including my Instagram and more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye everyone.